Hello, beautiful sisters. Today, I might have an accent every once in a while because I have been practicing quite all day here. But either way, if not, then I'll speak if none of you like it. I don't know how good it is. Okay, I muted you for now, Trish, just because I could hear myself. So today we have week 3 of the Womb Awakening program, which is going to be focused on womb slash the feminine cycle in general. Now, when someone enters the divine feminine world for the first time, it's like, how do I start? Like, I tend to take people through the cycles, and as soon as you connect to the cycles, you connect to the divine feminine. So, like, practical 3D version, here you go. And the magic that comes from living with your cycles is redonkulous. Like, I've just taught people just what I'm about to teach you this week, and it changes their business. This is what changed my business. I'm just letting you know. This is what changed. This is what changed. Right when I started doing this is when I found the love of my life. Right when I started doing this, everything started to come together. And then week 4 is going to bring in supportive supplements and herbs and all these yummy things that are going to just tie it all together. So like you're going to see how everything just continues to compile upon itself. So a few things we're going to be going over today. The womb slash feminine cycle, I'm going to go over the difference between infradian and circadian rhythm. Many people don't hear about what infradian is. I'll be going through that. Then we're going to be going through the 5th vital sign. We're going to be talking about how to have peace with your period, whether you have it still or not. We're going to be talking about the menstrual cycle phases. There's 4 of them, by the way. To this day, not a single woman that isn't a priestess or some type of womb healer has been able to tell me what the 4 menstrual cycle phases are without before I teach them. So like huge deal. I've asked like 200 plus women at this point. So that'll be a big one. Now we're also going to go through the 4 moon cycles, 4 menstrual cycles, 4 moon cycles. We're going to be going through the 4 seasons of the earth. Are you seeing a theme here? Because it's a theme. It's a thing. And then we're going to be going through the 4 divine feminine archetypes that are within every single person's life. And then we're going to go over astrology as well. So, and how what astrology has to do, and what's the cycle of astrology, and so on and so forth. No, this is only like I'm gonna mention right now. I don't consider myself an astrologist. Like the information I'm gonna give you today is as much as it goes. Like this is what I know. So, but what I do know has been able to support. Now, there's a little more, but not a lot. I'm going to be going over how to track your menstrual and your moon cycle as well. Whether you have whether you're menstruating or not, whether you stop bleeding completely, you can still track and still live an infradian rhythm and live in cycles with the moon, with the seasons, with astrology, and all that jazz. And I will also talk about how to eat, how to diet, how to do seed cycling, and all kinds of different practices to practice cycling in your life. And all I ask, like, it's totally up to you. Like, you can decide at the end of the day. I give you the knowledge, and it's up to you if you want to try it or not. But if you're going to pass it on to somebody else, if you're trying to teach this to support somebody else, it will be supportive. If you have a daughter, or if you have a niece, or if you have a young person that you care about, if you're a teenager, or if you're an elementary school teacher, all of this is going to be extremely important to start them off young. And that's like my hope and goal at the end of the day. Like, yes, teach this generation because these are the moms, right? And we're supposed to bring it into the teenagers and so on and so forth, because this is impactful knowledge. And then I'll be going over a womb tree meditation to connect you to a womb tree. I think I have that today. I have it on my notes. We'll find out by the end. And then I'm going to go through a little bit of a rites passage and your soul work. Okay, so that's the scope of it. Now, before we get into all of that beautiful stuff, we're going to have Trish open the womb sanctuary practice today, and she will also be closing it. And I told her she is a very creative person, which is amazing. So I told her to do it in whatever way fits her. Okay. So, Trish, you are muted. Whenever you're ready to unmute yourself, you may begin.
All right, ladies. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever this brings you. Thank you for joining us, and I'm honored to open up this rite of passage. So if we can just place our mudras on our sanctuary, on our womb, and just gently press them and place them there. Close your eyes. And just take 3 deep breaths into your belly, into your womb. Try and bring the air, the breath, push it down as deep as you can into your womb with me as we go. 1, and release. Let's do it again. Try and push it down and deep into your womb and the back of your back, all around. Get the air everywhere. And one more. Oh. And I just call on all our spirit guides, all our angels, our archangels. Call on your own personal ones that guide you, that help you. Trust yourself. Go within. I call on Archangel Mary, Metatron, Michael, and all my personal ones. We plant a seed in our womb of love, of joy, of sunshine growing within our womb, of love and compassion and grace. As it expands out and touches every other little crevice in our body, every little hidden thing that we've not seen, something that hasn't seen shine, maybe we don't know it's there. Just spread light and love in every area of our body as it expands out and expands out. Encompasses all of our body and all of our chakras. All of our chakras are aligned. And as we breathe, it expands further, even further, past the area that we're in, to our loved ones, to our families, to our family members that are hurting, some that could need extra love. Spread your light and your love in your womb. Sanctuary to protect you as we go deep within this healing practice. I thank you. I honor you. I love you. Please forgive me. And go ahead and open up your eyes. Take one more good deep breath. And we can start the process.
Wow. Anybody want to mention what the difference was between Trisha's and anybody else's and what you experienced with Trish? I'm going to go really quickly. I literally felt all my chakras aligned and like I was having a woo woo high. I'm like, oh my God, did I take a plant medicine? Like, did I drink the wrong thing earlier? Wait a minute, let me just check in. No, I think I'm good. I did have some cacao earlier. maybe it's a mix of cacao and Trish. I don't know. That was awesome. So thank you.
Thank you.
For me, it was just beautiful. I love calling in all the archangels that we haven't done before. And I just almost kind of feel like they're in the room with me right now. So I thought that was really, whatever you have, Jazz, I want some of that. Was that your mugwort you had earlier? No, whatever.
Funny. Yeah, I had cacao earlier, but I also did have mugwort. I do smoke mugwort a lot. So yeah, thank you. That was awesome. Yeah, and I'm drinking a Zevia now. If you don't know what a Zevia is,
I don't.
it's 0 calories. I don't drink soda, but I drink this. It is delicious. Zevia. Okay. It's in Whole Foods. Okay. No advertisement was meant during this video. Anyway, so womb / feminine cycle. I do want to be clear. I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but I just want to emphasize it once again that no matter where you are in life, cycles is important. Whether you're in menopause or menstruating or don't even have a womb, that if you want to connect to the divine feminine, you connect to the cycles. There is no formula that equals divine feminine that doesn't have cyclical living. Okay, I just want to be extremely clear. I mean, I'm sure there's people will have different formulas, but not in my life. This is what I have experienced. Okay, so does anybody know what circadian rhythm is?
I do. Isn't that like a natural rhythm? I have heard of that.
Mm-hmm. Anything else? Maybe.
Oh,
Lisa, you can come in too. I know you've taken my classes, but you can come in too. You can't.
Can you hear me? Is my microphone working? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Circadian rhythms. There's like your like internal sleep clock, like your internal clock. Yeah.
Yeah. So it is the 24-hour clock that is within us. So it's specific to what happens in from 0 seconds to 24 hours, and anything that is in that cycle of a 24-hour period of days and nights. So at your energy level, it starts really high or low if you didn't sleep well, but it normally starts really high and then it starts to dwindle throughout the day. Your body temperature will change depending if you're awake or asleep. Your blood pressure, your hormone secretions, especially for men, it happens at certain time periods. Okay. Now, does anybody know what infradian rhythm is? No. Okay, yay. So infradian rhythm is cycles that are longer than 24 hours. So your menstrual cycle, your moon cycles, astrology and the seasons, all the things that connects us to the divine feminine, right? So there is, okay, here's a fun fact. The infradian rhythm affects 6 different systems in our body. So the first one is brain. In 1 month, your brain chemistry changes on average 25%. 25%, especially for a woman, our brains will completely start shifting little by little, and no day has the same percentage of brain chemistry as the day before or the day after. Okay. Metabolism. A woman's metabolism speeds up and slows down through the month, and it's best to change the way you eat and your workouts to optimize your metabolism. So how I was mentioning earlier about your food and your exercise and how we'll be talking about the cycles, it's because of that metabolism shift as well as your brain and your stress hormones and all this other stuff. We're going to talk about ways that you're, like, for example, our stress level is another system that our infradian rhythm is in charge of. And our stress will rise and lower at different times. So when it's lower, we want to add more things into our diet that's going to give us the serotonin we need to keep going, and the dopamine, and so on and so forth. When it's high, we don't need that. So we'll be focusing on other foods that will support you throughout the rest of the month, different superfoods and all that jazz. So there's certain ways to really take advantage of our infradian rhythm body. Before I move on to the other ones, I do want to make clear that women are 75% or more infradian rhythm. This is how our bodies are so connected to any infradian rhythms like menstrual cycle, moon cycle, seasons, and astrology. Okay. Now, men's have 75% circadian rhythm. Women are 75% infradian, so that means less than 25% is circadian rhythm, the 24-hour clock that we're so used to. Oh, it's 3 o'clock, it's 5 p.m. Oh, it's 3 o'clock, I gotta get on that womb healing, right? It's 5 p.m. I gotta start heading to sleep, or I gotta get off work, or whatever that is. That's what we're used to, and we see every single day. While the infradian rhythm is a little different. It's a monthly cycle. Okay. So men have 75% circadian rhythm and 25% infradian rhythm. Now, I don't know if you guys remember the Libombo bone. Anybody remember what that was about? Trish, you want to remind
That was
us?
the first markings of our periods, right around the cycle of the moon. Wasn't there 13, right? And it was on the Labamba bone, the mark, yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. It was the first mathematical and calendar artifact ever found. So the first calendar that was ever created was an infradian rhythm calendar. Okay. Now the calendar we have that was made by Augustus, Saint Augustus, I believe it was his name, and he was the one that started adding all these different factors in. Our calendar that we see every single day and the time clock that we see every single day, that is just one out of many that have been created throughout history. So like, this is what we see as a law, but really it's just a hypothesis at the end of the day. Okay.
So that's all geared towards the men too, right? Because that's the clock is more the circadian, as is history, as everything is more about, right? Yes. And all that procrastination that we say is lazy is more female, right?
Correct. Yeah. So for men, think about work. Every day, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. And that's actually when I don't have it on the PowerPoint, but I will put it in the notes. Someone remind me if you don't see it. Okay, remind me. So, but you can literally see how from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., they have very high testosterone levels. And when you have high testosterone, you have very high focus, and you can focus on just work throughout that time period. And around 5 p.m., it drops. That's when they get home and all they want to do is veg out, because their testosterone had a major drop around the 5 p.m. mark. So you can see how literally our lives are perfect for the 75% circadian rhythm men that are out there, right? But not particularly for infradian rhythm. And we're going to talk more about the differences, but I do want to go back. So, hi, Andrea. So I'm going to repeat a few things that Andrea came in, by the way. So like, just go along with it. So the infradian rhythm affects 6 different systems of the body. Andrea, do you know what infradian rhythm is since you got here, or do you need me to read?
I know vaguely. Thank you.
Okay. Does anybody want to practice saying what the infradian rhythm is so far? Don't all jump up at once.
It's the female are 75% infradian, men are 75% circadian. So our 6 systems run off of that, yet our world is run on the circadian.
Yeah, so the infradian rhythm is anything that's over 24 hours. It's like menstrual cycle, moon cycle. These are monthly seasons. And all of that is part of the infradian rhythm. The circadian rhythm is anything that's below 24 hours. So that consists of our body temperature, our energy levels, and our hormone productions, as an example. Okay, so repeating one more time so that everybody can get their notes good to go. So the infradian rhythm affects 6 different parts. We talked about brain, how our brain changes 25% on average every single month. We talked about metabolism, how it goes down and goes up, and how there's certain ways to eat and exercise to optimize your metabolism throughout the month. Now we're talking about stress. So stress is another part of the body, which is like the nervous system portion. Stress can make our periods heavier, can show up late or stop completely. So stress can affect our periods like crazy, which if our periods are affected, that means our hormones are affected. And the hormones are affected by cortisol. So cortisol releases when stress is activated and suppresses normal levels of reproductive hormones. I think it's officially time for me to share my screen. So anybody can say. Present mode. Present. Okay. Brain metabolism, stress. The more stress we have, the more abnormal our menstrual cycle, and our level of cortisol increases during the follicular phase automatically, and it will increase in extreme heights when we're not doing as good in our lives, right? Like if you feel stressed, know that your period is gonna change. It's just part of it. Next is our immune system. So our immune system completely drops. If you start to track your cycle, which is going to be your soul work at the end of the day, whether it's menstrual or moon cycle, you're going to end up seeing a complete drop around the new moon time period, as an example, right? Or your menstrual time period, the time period that you're bleeding. Right beforehand, that PMS time period is when your immune system completely drops. So when I look back at my calendar and I see when I'm tracking, if it's around new moon, especially if I'm menstruating on the same time period, my immune system is shot on average. I know I have to take a bunch of vitamin C's, I have to take certain nutrients, and I have to take certain herbs to support and boost my immune system at that time, because if not, it's very easy for me to get sick. Okay. And our microbiome is what's in our gut, and it's also within our oral, and it can be found in our skin as well. And these microbiomes completely shift throughout the 4 seasons. Okay. Now, if you're going to take a microbiome test at any point, like if you're going to take a stool test, or if you're going to see what's in your gut, you want to do it around the luteal phase, which is around that PMS time period, right before your bleeding time again. Okay. And when you do that, it'll have the most variety and tell you what's happening, what's active the most. But if you take a microbiome test every week for a whole month, your microbiomes are going to look completely different. Okay. Then I mentioned this earlier, the 75%. Estrogen. So some of you know estrogen. Estrogen is what's known as the divine feminine hormone at the end of the day. The more estrogen you are, the more girly that you can feel, right? At least that's what it's said. There's more to it, which we will talk about. Anybody want to read this?
I will.
Thanks, Trish, for being my assistant today.
Estrogen affects practically everybody that a teen girl experiences, including responsitivity to light and the daily light-dark cycle. Estrogen receptors get activated in the brain's 24-hour clock cells in the suprachiasmatic nucleus. These clusters
Pretty
of
close.
cells, what's that?
You were close. Go ahead. You're great.
Suprachiasmatic, yeah. These clusters of cells orchestrate the daily, monthly, and annual rhythms of the body, such as those of hormones, body temperature, sleep, and mood. Estrogen even directly influences the brain cells that control breathing. It turns on the unique female sleep cycle as well as her growth hormone. By puberty, estrogen sets the timing of everything in the female brain. The female male brains end up marching to different drummers, the female brain.
Thank you. So around puberty, when we start getting the boobies and we start getting our periods, one of the big things that is starting to happen is we're starting to get an influx of estrogen again. Now, our estrogens were the highest when we were around 1 year old. Okay, really cool. Like, what? Oh, that's why the 1 year olds, especially little 1 year olds, right now we have my niece, and she's now cuddling with everything. Every time that we give her something, she hugs it first, and then she lets it go, and she looks with so much love, and she laughs so much. And my husband just cannot stop, like, ah, like not only is it baby smell, but it's her pheromones that are so extremely just creating estrogen at all times. So right when we start ovulating, our estrogen is the highest, okay? And our estrogen starts to show up when we start to bleed. So when estrogen shows up, our whole body starts to act and react differently, not just our hormones, but you just heard about your brain. You just heard how it literally changes like your breathing system. It changes our sleep cycle. It starts the growth hormones, and it even affects us how we connect to light and all this jazz. So this is huge. Now, another fun fact, this is from a book called The Female Brain, which is definitely going to be in the resource section. This book is Epoch, which means epic, by the way. And this book is epic, and the female brain, like some of the things that I've learned in it, I'll give you an example. So I recently learned that everybody is female until 8 weeks, right? And then 8 weeks, there is a certain hormone called the MRI hormone that literally attacks the female organs, destroys it, and then puts masculine organs in its place. No, it's not like no. It literally kills off the female organ. So I thought that was very interesting on how men are created around the 8 week time period. So there's more to it. You can do your homework, but I was just so in shock that she used the word kills and destroys in that sentence. And I did some major homework on it. It's very interesting. All right, lunar cycle impact. So everything that I'm talking to you about, and even like, okay, menstrual cycle, it makes sense why it affects us. But what about the moon? How does the moon affect us? Donna, you want to read this one? This is a study, by the way.
Okay. The lunar cycle impact. Human and animal physiology are subject to seasonal, lunar, and circadian rhythms. Although the seasonal and circadian rhythms have been fairly well described, little is known about the effect of the lunar cycle on the behavior and physiology of humans and animals. The lunar cycle has an impact on human reproduction, in particular, fertility, menstruation, and birth rate. Melatonin levels appear to correlate with the menstrual cycle. Admittance to hospitals and emergency units because of various causes, cardiovascular and acute coronary events, varicose hemorrhage, vehicular hemorrhage, diarrhea, urinary retention, correlated with moon phases. In addition, other events associated with human behavior, such as traffic accidents, crimes, and suicides, appear to be influenced by the lunar cycle. Wow.
Thank you. So a lot of what's happening around the world, werewolves, the old history of werewolves, oh, on the full moons, all of that is because at some point in us, we knew that at certain points of the moon cycle, we shift and change. And a big part of it is think about the ocean and how much it shifts and changes depending on what moon phase it's in. So does 70% of the water that's within us. It shifts and changes and connects to the moon as well. All right, so I'm going to go through the cycles and I'm going to make it as easy as possible by focusing on the seasons. Everybody knows winter, spring, summer, and fall, right? So just remember, if you think about winter, what do you have an image of? Winter.
Cold, snow.
Hibernating, going within,
Yes, thank you.
baking,
Energy level.
low.
Low,
Okay,
tired.
yeah. And a great time period is to go inwards, right? Which is what Trish said. So what's spring?
Rebirth, planting seeds,
Mhm. What else?
creation,
Starting to grow. Things are growing again.
New
Yeah.
life blossoms.
Yes, perfect. Summer.
It's hot, thankfully.
reaping the joy,
It's either super hot or super rainy, right? So there's that weird, funny mix. Everything is blossoming at this point. Foods are abundant. Everything is abundant during that time period. And what about fall?
things are falling away, dying off.
It's a lot of harvesting time that we've done. It's getting colder, kind of starting to cocoon a little bit.
Yeah, perfect. This is also if you when we didn't have a grocery store in every corner, this would be the time period where people would be planting roots very often, and they would be canning and preserving their food as much as possible to prepare for the next 6+ months. And then
Mhm.
they pretty much eat off jars and meat around the autumn all the way into winter. So a lot of completion, a lot of completing things for the big day when winter arrives, right? A lot of to-do lists during that time, a lot of getting things done. All right, so I just gave you the seasons. So here you're gonna see inner winter, inner spring, inner summer, and inner fall. So think about what we just talked about. When you think of inner winter, then you can focus on menstruation. You can bring in that same energy from winter into menstruation. So some things that we mentioned is relaxation, right? And I also have some menstruation stuff over here. I'm gonna move you over. Menstrual phase, bleeding, reflective, passive and withdrawn, subconscious intuition, inwards, inward focus. A great time for creativity, connecting within. This is when big ideas start to come up. Does that make sense? How winter and menstruation come together? All right, so what about inner spring? Think about spring. This is called the pre-ovulation. If you want the scientific term, it's called the follicular phase. Okay, now in spring, what tends to happen? Things are bursting, right? Seeds are being planted. We initiate big ideas. When you're planting a seed in your mind, you're planting a big idea. You're planting something big. This is a great time to start planting what you want in your life. This is technically like when the new year happens, it's the first day of spring, right? That's if it was the infradian rhythm calendar, I should say, not on January 1st, which was still in winter, right? We're supposed to go inwards, but let's get everybody to do Thanksgiving and gather. Let's get everybody to do Christmas and get gifts and focus outwards. And then let's get everybody to do New Year's and during winter, y'all. Anyway, so pre-ovulation, inner spring, your energy starts to go from inwards focus to starting to finally go outwards until you reach the peak of summer, right? Same thing with spring. It's starting, there's more daylight being given until the peak of the summer when day is officially longer than night, right? And then it starts to go and night starts to become more and more, and then the sun starts to disappear, and then it's officially winter. So at the end of the day, infradian rhythm is all about the sun and the moon in particular, right? Especially the moon. The circadian rhythm is more about the 24-hour sun that comes up and comes down, right? Okay, so next, ovulation. So ovulation is that time period that we are super women. This is the time period where we get pregnant, right? And this is also that motherhood feeling. So I have it over here. Motherhood, ovulation time period. It's very outgoing. It's constantly outward focus. It's a great time for communication, networking, supporting others, putting yourself out there. This is a great time right here for like Christmas and all that jazz. And then pre-menstruation, fall time period, when the leaves are falling, they're starting to go more inwards. You know that winter is coming. So your energy starts to dwindle. Your instincts are starting to go higher because you're starting to go inwards more. Is anybody lost with these 4 menstrual cycle phases and the seasons? Very easy when you connect it to the seasons, right? Like, ding, if I wouldn't have taught you the seasons, you would have been like, wait, like what the what? Like, and then like I just saved a bunch of time. So just to give you a small, you can do your own research, and I sent you girls a video about the anatomy, and it goes through the 4 phase a little more, but I mentioned some the follicular phase, which is springtime, right? This is when the egg develops, when you're planting an egg, not just a seed, right? So the springtime. Ovulation is when your endometrium thickens. So think about a tree, how all the leaves are coming back, and the leaves, it just grows into this big bush at the top, right? And if anything, it gets a little wild and you need to trim it down a bit. So the endometrium thickens. If you think of a tree, think of those green leaves, okay? Then the luteal phase, the egg gets released. What did Donna say? This is the harvesting time period. So our egg officially gets released. It's sent away. It is taken out of the soil and given life, possibly. And then the menstrual cycle, if we were pregnant, we would go to menstrual cycle. We would stay in luteal phase. Our body temperature would start to rise after 18 days of being in luteal phase and stay extremely high, higher than normal throughout our pregnancy, at least the first trimester. Okay, then, but if we do not get pregnant, then our endometrium sheds. Okay, so this one, bleeding time period. What we are bleeding is the endometrium. That is what is thickening during ovulation and then completely releasing throughout menstruation. Okay, so now we talked about the seasons. We talked about the 4 phases, which I will go deeper in, but I'm bringing it all together. Now, moon cycles. What moon cycles do you girls know about? The new moon. You know, this is, you know, you girls can talk
I've
to
heard
me.
of the waxing and the waning, but I've never known what it meant.
The what?
I've heard of the waxing and the waning moons, but I don't know what it means. So basically I just know full moon is out, new moon is inward. That's the only 2 that I know.
Okay, yeah. So here, you know, spring, you know, follicular phase, waxing moon. That waxing time period when it's becoming the full moon is springtime for the moon. Okay, and it's also, if you can look at the goddess archetypes or the feminine archetypes of us, it's the maiden time period, that maiden energy. When you think about somebody that hasn't even gotten their puberty yet, it's very innocent, right? So that's the waxing moon time period. Then the waning moons, we have the full moon, which is ovulation at its fullest, superwoman time period, summer, jumping into beaches and wearing your bikinis, right? This is also mother energy. You're putting yourself out there, you're birthing, you're supporting a whole other being because you're freaking superwoman. And these days you have to have a job and you have the kids and take care of the household. You're superwoman. Okay, so that's ovulation time period. The waning moon is going back into inward. So the full moon is waning and leaving, right? Leaving, and it's heading into the new moon time period. So that's when we start going more inwards focused. We start feeling that energy. So fall, waning, and luteal phase are together, as well as the enchantress energy. So some of you are enchantress or enchantresses. No? Wait, yes, I think. Nobody? Oh, snap. So in the Red Tech Goddess Academy, we take the Enchantress class. And in the Enchantress class, you start to really hone into this energy. This is also called the witchy energy, the intuitive energy, the spiritual energy. If you notice our sisters, normally what age are they around? 45, 50, we have some 40s as well. That's all when people start to truly awaken their spirituality for most people. That's when they start to awaken, which is that enchantress energy. Our intuition starts to really deepen around that time period of our lives. And it tends to be like around perimenopause time period or a little bit beforehand. Perimenopause, people say it is like 1 year, but like if you do the research, like there's signs from 7 years down that everything starts to change little by little and like what the heck is going on, and then you think you get it and then you don't. Right, so there's that. So the enchantress energy is that time period when we're done having kids and we're focusing more on ourselves again. Then we can start connecting to the divine, connecting to something else instead of just our children, right? Taking care of another being, enchantress energy. And then during menopause, when we have our period officially eliminated, we're in a whole new part of our lives. And mentally after menopause, our estrogen starts to dwindle and testosterone starts to rise. So our ovaries are producing testosterone at this point more. So our whole brain chemistry changes completely during menopause time period. And all of our want to provide for others and all this stuff, people start to learn the word no without an issue. Like all of a sudden they're like no to everything, like get the fuck out of my face, like I don't want to deal with that. They stop caring so much. Like, you're old enough, take care of it yourself. I'm not going to take care of your laundry anymore. And they've never been like that. Like, mom, this is a new you. Yeah, I'm menopause me. Right, so this is that crone energy, that wise woman energy, and also that new moon time period. You're stop worrying about the rest of the world and you're going inwards, right? Winter time period, menstruation. Making sense? Do you girls are seeing a theme? No questions? Okay, cool. So I will get more into this, just to be clear, but I wanted to give you a breakdown and an understanding. So most people know what the 4 vital signs: blood pressure, weight, pulse, and temperature, right? When you go to the doctor, what do? They put on a thingy and they check your blood pressure, and they get you on a scale and they check your weight, right? They take your pulse. Someone goes in, puts a little thing on you with little earbuds, and it's like, hello, ow, don't do that. So then you put it on your chest and they hear your pulse, right? And they take your temperature, they put something in your mouth. Well, there's a 5th vital sign, especially for women: your period. So just as important as checking your blood pressure, your weight, your pulse, and your temperature when you see the doctor, I personally have I really don't see the doctor. But what I would do is I would give them my notebook, which is this one. Dun, 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 dun. I have a specific notebook to track my period and to track the cycles. And I will be teaching you girls today how to do that and how to track it yourself. And you can decide to purchase this, or I'm going to give you a piece of paper that you can print out and constantly do and track, right? And whether your 5th vital sign is period or not, maybe you're done with your period, you track your moon cycle and you can start to connect. Now, your period changes colors, can change frequencies. The moon is a 29.5-day cycle, but you will see how your blood pressure, your weight, your pulse, your temperature can all change during that time period. So with your period, you can have brown blood, you can have red blood, you can have purple blood coming out of you, and you're like, what the heck is going on? It all means different things. It's telling you if you have low progesterone is when you have brown blood. If you have more purpley, then higher estrogen, and so on and so forth. If you're heavy bleeding, you have way too much estrogen. Your period is telling you what's happening with your body. So writing that down, if you have cramps, if you have PMS, if you have acne, if you have yada, yada, yada throughout your period, it's all giving you a sign that something isn't going in the way your body would like it to go for it to be optimal. Okay, so absent, painful, irregular, no signs. If you anovulated, which means you don't ovulate, all signs. Your period is regular. If your period is regular and if it's cranberry red, if it's consistent and if it's pain-free, that's how you know the rest of your body is healthy. You can literally know if you're healthy or not by looking at your period. And again, if maybe this isn't for you, but maybe you can think about the time periods in the past when you had your period. How many of you have your periods right now? Like curiosity, like you're still going through the menstrual cycle phase. So you're in perimenopause?
Yeah, definitely. But I had that procedure, so I'm not supposed to really be bleeding, but I still get cramps. I still get acne. So yeah, I'm in peri, definitely.
Okay, so you can kind of still connect the same dots because at the end of the day, it is telling you that your body is going through changes. And
Right.
depending on if you get cramps or if you get acne, then when some of the things that I'll be able to teach you and I'll guide you into more research that goes into that, because I know that not everybody has menstrual cycle. At some point, I'll make a whole menstrual cycle course and I'll go really deep into all the things. Like if you have acne, this is what it means. But there's a book that I can support that will support you as well.
Okay, cool.
Okay. But just
Even
knowing
I had stuff taken out, like I had my ovaries and fallopian tubes taken out.
Mhm.
Hysterectomy. So that put me into chemical menopause or surgical menopause.
Yeah, so you can still remember the time periods when you did have your period and start to be like, oh, like I remember when I got cramps. Oh, okay. So like when I get cramps, it's because I had way too much stress in the month. And then I know that I push myself too much. And like literally, if I actually practice the cycles and go through what I'm about to teach you in a few slides about energy level and how to focus your energy on it, I have no cramps, zero. But the moment that I stop caring about the cycle, or I'm just so focused on circadian rhythm, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. kind of stuff, then I will get cramps. It's without a doubt, it's ridiculous. Okay. All right. So menstruation. We talked about the season. What's the season? Winter. Yeah. Moon phase. New moon. Okay, what is this time period for? Bleeding, relaxation, going inwards. What are your hormones doing around this time period? Your progesterone is dropping, and that's what's triggering the shutting of your uterine line, which is what we talked about. Your uterine line is completely just that's what your blood is. It's the uterine line. Okay, your body. Oh, this thing is like totally in this. That's fun. Your body is, if you may be experiencing pelvic cramping, backache, fatigue, cravings, all of this can happen if you're not slowing down and your body is asking you to slow down. Another reason I know that when I'm about to get a cramp is when I'm like constantly on a go-go and I haven't given myself time to do self-care or make a face mask or take a breath in the shower. The cramps will come. Okay. And if during menstruation is when I wear pajamas, I think it was last week, the last week that we were together, I was totally in pajama mode. I'm like, I'm sorry, girls, it's pajama time for me. If it's pajama time, that means I'm on my period. Just to give you a heads up. If I got fuzzy socks on, it's because I need something to keep me comfy during those time periods to keep me going. Okay. Love during this time period. So for menstruation time period, for winter time period, I wish this thing wasn't. It's totally up to you and your partner on what you want to do. Some people don't like having sex or doing anything down there when they're bleeding, which is totally fine. Just to let you know, there is research showing that if you can get yourself fully aroused, not just him sticking it in, but if you get yourself fully aroused during menstruation and then he gets in you and you can have a pleasurable moment with your partner, it's actually, it like not eliminates, but decreases cramps. And I can say from personal experience that it's true. Okay, so that's a cool little fun fact. So if that weren't the case, we're never supposed to have sex during that time period. Would we have that capability of experiencing that? Probably not. So just to put that out there, like it's totally up to you if you want to give it a shot or not. Masturbation is also a great thing if you can get yourself fully aroused and have some fun there, right? Now, this is a time period. Maybe you don't want to particularly connect with your partner in that way, but you can connect so deep with any divine beings, any divine connections that you have. So womb healings, not particularly womb healings, but womb connections during this time period, jumping into your womb space, opening up your womb sanctuary and asking questions to your higher self or to a goddess or connecting to your angel guides, any of that kind of stuff, doing visualizations, meditations are amazing during menstruation and during winter and during new moon time period. Dun, 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 dun. There's a lot of opportunity here. Okay. Exercise. So during menstruation, I take my first 2 days off. Done. I don't do that. When I don't particularly hike, it's actually not fun. I don't know why hiking is here. It shouldn't be there. But there is a certain type of yoga, which there's a book, which I will add that into the research, but you can look up Yoni Shakti, which is a book, and it talks about how yoga, it was made for women. Like women were the first shamans, but women were the first yoga people too. So you get to learn on how yoga was actually completely shifted over to a circadian rhythm type of style for men in particular, and how now they're remembering the traditional yoga that was once, and now they're bringing it back. And it was meant, stretching is a great time period around this time period. Qigong is a great time, or a great time to do this kind of stuff. I love foam rolling. Of course, don't foam roll in your stomach area, but you can do it in other areas. But definitely I take 2 days off during menstruation. So if you're like, think about how we normally exercise, and we try to exercise like men, right? It's like, listen, we exercise every single day in the morning, or I'm gonna exercise 2 to 3 times a week. Well, personally, how I exercise is I exercise more when I'm ovulating, when I'm in superwoman mode, when I'm that beginning part of luteal, when I'm at the highest point of my luteal phase, the beginning part. When I start to go inwards, I'll start to do more flow toys. I will start to hike more. I will start to walk more. I will start to do things that are calmer. I'll start to do Qigong practices, stretching, foam rolling. And then when I'm back to spring, then I'll start to move more. And that's when I love to dance. And I start dancing around the whole house. People are like, what's happening? Like, don't you know already? I'm in like my springtime. So that kind of stuff. All right. Lifestyle during menstruation. So we talked about this is a great time to do divine connection. Well, taking out the tarot cards, doing the smudging, all of those are fantastic. Journaling is absolutely huge around this time period. And we also talked about creating like big ideas. So I love to look at my vision board and just do like check-ins with it, and being able to just relook, reevaluate, reassess what's going on. Business during your menstrual cycle or during new moon time period. Okay, so for menstrual cycle and moon people, during the new moon time period, it is a great time to, your task should hopefully already be done during the luteal phase, but if you haven't, then you can do it at the end of the menstruation. But again, taking 2 or 3 days off to do you, to just take a break from work and being able to connect to yourself. Like, is this what I wanted this month? How did I do this month? Ask yourself questions, journal it out, go deep into what worked and what didn't during this time period, and connect. Like, am I heading on the right path? Ask those types of questions. And then self-care at this point, we've kind of talked about it, but definitely tea is something that I love to do for self-care time periods, my fuzzy socks. And those 2 or 3 days that I take off and I just disappear, you'll see, I don't even answer on Signal. Like I disappear for those 2 or 3 days. I'm in a book. I'm in a book with tea and fuzzy socks. And when my tea is done, my husband brings me more. I don't cook during that time period. I don't do any of it. My hubby takes care of it all. Or I meal prep during my luteal phase, which canning and preserving during the fall is what tends to happen. People are prepping for winter, so I prep for my menstruation time period. Okay, pre-ovulation, follicular phase, inner spring, the waxing moon. So Trish, you were like, don't really know waxing and waning very well. Well, I'm gonna break it down for you. This is the energy that happens when you're in waxing, or when the moon is waxing. All right, springtime period, go mode, initiate big ideas. You're starting to see a theme here. I'm starting to repeat myself because it all connects. Hormones, your ovaries are preparing to release an egg. Your estrogen is rising little by little until it reaches its peak. And your uterine lining is preparing to host the egg. your body is starting to increase in energy and in energy level. So you're starting to go more and more and more. Your brain is very creative. It loves beginning new things. It loves adventures. It loves trying new things. This is the time period to go out to that new restaurant. I have a want to go area on my Google Maps, and I just pick a want to go and I go during this time period, okay? For love making, this is a great time period to focus on the arousal phase. Remember how I sent a text message a few days ago, like a woman to get to full arousal is 35 to 45 minutes. We can totally have sex beforehand, but I actually practiced this yesterday. And I had a great time just practicing seeing what would happen. Okay, like now I know this knowledge. So I checked myself. I'm in my luteal phase right now, and my cervical mucus, and I did this, it was very clumpy. When I did this, there was nothing. It stayed on both sides of my finger, and there was nothing in between. The 35 to 45 minutes later, when I continued my arousal phase and got myself going, then all of a sudden my cervical mucus changed and it started to get sticky. I would do this and it would keep going. I'm like, yeah. And it was starting to get white, egg white. So all of that is a sign that you are in full arousal, as well as my clit was enlarged, right? So during the follicular phase, it's a great time to practice getting yourself to that arousal phase. My husband told me, like, hey, I want to have sex tonight, so prepare yourselves. I don't want to spend 35, 45 minutes tonight in particular. I have a long schedule, but like, I still want some. So what do? I spend those 35, 45 minutes playing with myself, getting on my yoga ball, taking out my dodos and all that jazz and having some fun on my own, right? Getting touch myself, feeling that up. So during the follicular phase, extra touches, massages beforehand, self-pleasuring yourself. Role playing is a lot of fun, something new, right? Maybe trying something new in bed or a new position might help you as well, or even use sex toys around this time period. Now, your testosterone and your estrogen are rising around this time period. So dancing, cardio, Zumba, toning, cycling, Orange Theory, jump ropes, rock climbing, going outdoors. This is the time period. This is the time period to do all the things outdoorsy and really show that guy that you're dating that you got it in you. This is the time period to get those dates for this time period. For foods, so we're officially going into food. We talked for winter. When you think about what to eat in winter, I kind of mentioned it earlier, but it's meats, really, and then canning and preserving foods, root as well tends to come up during winter time period, and that serves you the most. During the follicular phase, it's really sprouts, like microgreens, and that little jar that you get that has like that little sprout coming out with 2 little leaves on it, that's a sprout. And then fermented foods, kimchi, kombucha, sauerkraut, and then lean protein and seeds. You just, if it was winter time period and you didn't have a gas station or a grocery store around you, you would have had like a whole deer you would have had a whole deer for that whole time period of winter. One deer would feed a whole family for the whole winter. And at this point, you're freaking tired of red meats. So you go for the chickens and you go for the turkeys and you go for the other things that aren't farm animals, or trying something different with lean proteins and seeds, things that are officially growing. Okay. Lifestyle. So during the follicular phase, we have major creative energy. That's why we want those new beginnings and new things. So the new hobbies, date ideas are something that I love to do around this time period. Being able to check in for the rest of the month of what your plans are and checking on your perspective is something that's really fun to do. Your business is a great time to plan out your funnel and like what's going to be my lead magnet, what's going to be that new video, creating new content for your social media, writing that blog post, creating those graphic designs, planning events for the next month. All of that is extremely fun. If you have an Etsy account, then this is when you would make most of your crafts for the month and just pack them in and have tons of fun, and you'll just get into that mode. Self-care during pre-ovulation time period, you can start to hang out with friends. You can, especially my favorite thing during follicular phase is going out to nature. It's also like visiting new things, like such as museums or new places in general. Is extremely helpful, but definitely during follicular phase, I love to go outwards, right? We're starting to slowly go outwards. So literally go outside for self-care instead of focusing on doing face mask and doing different things with your hair or taking care of your nails. My favorite and the best self-care to do is to go outside. Ovulation. I need a break. Does anybody know ovulation by any chance? Or wants to read the notes on here?
I'll read it.
Thanks, Trish.
Ovulation, inner summer, full moon. It's the season is summer. The moon phase is full moon. So keynotes, you are superwoman. You can get anything done. You feel like you're on top of the world. Hormones are rising. Follicles swell enough to release an egg to travel to the uterus. Estrogen increases to thicken the uterine lining, preparing for a baby. The verbal and social centers of the brain are extremely active. Your energy is high, your skin will be glowing, and you will smell and feel irresistible to the people around you. You're most fertile during this phase. So in this time, you should be most mindful with sex, whether you're trying to get pregnant or not. Love, this is your most fertile time. Your hormones are up, your cervical fluid is flowing. Enjoy hot and steamy sex. Make sure to use condoms because fertility is high right now.
Beautiful, thank you. So exercise during ovulation. So this is the time period to do those HIIT workouts, doing interval trainings. You can still go outside during this time period. You can do those intense yoga poses. You're like, how do people even get into that? Give it a try during this time period. Do those strength-based workouts, those 10-minute CrossFit things, and all of that is a great time. If you want to run a marathon, do it hopefully during your ovulation time period, and you'll be able to get through it faster without like, whew, okay, yeah, there you go, keep going. It's much easier. If you try to do it during your period, what's going to be, you're like, why the fuck did I want to do this stupid thing? Completely different energy, right? So just notice that and try to plan things out more during ovulation. If you're going on a date for the first time, plan it around your ovulation time period. Your pheromones are going crazy around this time period. So, and especially even during the full moon, even men will go a little more crazy. So that's a nice little thing to know. And they just want you more. So if there's 100 women in the room, but one woman is ovulating, men are going to notice her the most. And it's not because she's prettier, any of that stuff. It's because her pheromones are going ballistic and telling the guys, I'm over here. Okay, so just putting that out there. All right, food during ovulation. When you think of summer, there's a lot of raw stuff out there, raw fruits and veggies, brand new spanking things coming out and blossoming, and we're starting to harvest things more often. There's a lot of time periods people will have grains. Rice is huge, right? Asparagus, Brussels sprouts, all of those things are blossoming around this time period. Your lifestyle. When I'm ovulating, I was literally laughing at myself this month because I again, like sometimes I'm very like every day I'm writing and putting things in my calendar. And then sometimes I'm so focused on life that I forget sometimes. And this month it happened during my ovulation time period when it started coming. And all of a sudden I started planning calls with people in the sisterhood and catching up with my family. And I was like, wait a minute, what phase am I in? I have to be in ovulation. I checked, I was exactly on day 14 and I was just laughing at myself like, okay, there's that communication. I'm planning out networking. I have to do this next time in the future. I need to know it's coming and I can plan it out on day 14 because I planned them for day 16 and on. And then I didn't want to talk to people. So I was like, yeah, here it is. Now I have to keep my word and do these things that I'm out of my cycle. Now I don't want to do it. I should have just called people that day. Right. So knowing that in advance can save you so much time and energy. Andrea and I got together and when we caught each other, it was the full moon time period, but I'm opposite. So I tend to bleed with full moon. So around that time period, I just gotten off bleeding and we were like, okay, well, I know we're supposed to meet at 1, but can we move it to 3? We're like, please, like, because we planned it out when we were ovulating, and now it was 2 weeks later. We were like, okay, like we're a little lower on energy than we thought we were gonna be, right? So just keeping track of that can totally change the way that you meet up with friends and family and date nights and so on and so forth. For businesses, again, we're superwoman during this time period. Dun, batching stuff, your blog posts, your videos, your podcast, literally creating a whole masterclass or workshop is great during follicular and ovulation. If you can finish it during follicular and launch it on ovulation, go for it. If you want to launch things, I would do it around like a few days before ovulation, and then you launch it and you're ready to go and you're messaging people and contacting people and letting them know about the course that's out. You can go to network events during this time period, and partnering up has been absolutely amazing during ovulation time period for me. Okay, so if you have an interview that you're going to be doing, plan it during this time of the month if you can, or as close to this as you can. Okay. Self-care. So during ovulation is again that time period when you go out with friends and you come to a Red Sign Goddess events, or you go on an adventure, you go traveling. Think about traveling on your period and traveling ovulation. You can kind of see the difference of when things work out and when they didn't. Okay. Pre-menstruation and luteal phase. So I want to actually, I think I have it over here. No, I really don't have it. Oh, okay, fine. I have it somewhere. So the luteal phase and the enchantress, this is like that enchantress time that I was talking about. If you think about the triple goddess symbol, what is it? It's a waning, it's a full moon, and it's a waxing, it's a full moon, and it's a waning. But there's no new moon on the triple goddess symbol. Anybody notice that? Okay, so I mentioned 4 moon cycle phases, but there's only 3 types of moons on the triple goddess symbol. What's going on? Well, the new moon isn't there, right? Especially in the olden days, it just wasn't there. So how would they possibly know that there was something there? So to them, there was 3, and they created the maiden, mother, and crone. But through time, we've now learned that the waning moon is actually the enchantress phase, and the new moon is the crone phase. So when we have maiden, mother, and crone, through time, that when it started with 4, they got lost and got into 3, and now it's becoming 4 again, and people are relearning what they already knew from doing plant ceremonies. They're now realizing that there is that 4th one. So just be aware, like it's really cute when you look at the triple goddess symbol. I personally am going to get a symbol here that has all 4. So I'm going to get like the new moon, the waxing, the full moon, and the waning moon on my hand. I already have the sun on the other one. And just notice. So this is that time period that's on that triple goddess symbol where it says crone, but it's really enchantress time period. Okay, that fall time period. Did I confuse you, Donna? Okay, just checking. Okay, so fall, waning moon. This is the time period from you're going from superwoman to going back inwards. So your energy is starting to dip little by little. And then during this time period, you wish it was like this. Like we all wish it was this very nice flow, but it's really like this, and then it crashes and then it keeps going. So that crash is that time period where that PMS tends to happen, or that inner critic voice. If you really pay attention, like we're perfectly fine, we're doing affirmations, we're go, 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 yeah. And then that luteal phase comes in a few days before your period, and you're like, why do I look so ugly in the mirror now? Like, why is this voice here? Like, like I was doing so good. And we beat ourselves up for something that is extremely normal. Our inner critic, our serotonin is low at this point. Our progesterone is particularly rising. We have all these different hormones going on within us that's shifting, and it's shifting really fast. In like a day, when I wake up, my body temperature is from down here to up here. And I'm like, oh, it literally skips points. Normally it changes 0.1, 0.2, changes a whole point. So just be aware that there's that shift, okay? So your body, physical energy declining, and then it declines quickly in that 1 or 2 days time period. Our sensory sensitivity, like I have a friend that she cannot go to loud places when she is in her luteal time period, because like it'll just bug her, like the sound. It's like, oh my God. And I have other people that need to wear certain glasses. I have a client that needs to wear certain glasses, and she literally has like blue light filters that she needs to wear during this time period because light is so strong for her, which you talked about is an estrogen thing, right? The way that your light gets perceived makes sense. Okay, so during your enchantress phase, this is a time period. This is the week for your love time period. You remember I told you that I was super sticky? right? My cervical mucus was super sticky. What phase was I in? Luteal phase. So this is that time period. It's super sticky. It's like the sperm isn't going anywhere. It's just staying, and then at some point it's going to slowly drip down, and it's not going up during this time period. Your body doesn't want to get pregnant during this time period. It wanted to get pregnant during ovulation. Now it's getting ready to shed. Even if the sperm tries to go up there, it's just going to start fall down, right? So this is a time period where like your cervical mucus will start to show on your underwear, and you like, oh, this thing again. Like, why is it white? Why do I have white on my underwear again? Well, that's during your luteal phase. That's how you can know that you are more than halfway through your luteal phase around that time period. Okay. This is a great time to get romantic, to get yourself in the mood, because most of the time you're kind of like, I don't really want to do that. I don't want to do that right now. Like, I know you just took off your pants, but I don't want to do that. But if they can arouse you, if you can watch a romantic movie, if you read a romantic book, if they put on the lights and the candles, they put the flowers on the bed during this time period, the music is on. Remember, I mentioned that this is a time period where you feel your sensory sensitivity, your skills for touch and feel and smell and taste are all coming alive. So giving yourself aphrodisiacs during this time period, strawberries with hot chocolate as an example. All of these little things will heighten those emotions and bring it up. So at the same time, if you're feeling that those inner critic voices, remember I told you about that drop? It's like, and then it keeps going. When that drop happens, one of the best thing that helps me and that shuts off my inner critic is sensory sensitivity. So you can use this to your advantage outside of the bedroom and bring yourself back up. So put on the aromatherapy, drink the aphrodisiacs, have the foods that are more aphrodisiac, like get yourself in a pleasure mode, and your inner critic voice will start to dwindle as your hormones of serotonin, oxytocin, dopamine are all starting to rise up again during that time period. So if you feel the dip, the best thing you could do is to give yourself some pleasure and to focus on your sensories. Any questions on that? Did I shock your system? Like, oh, wow, that makes sense. Holy snap, I'm never gonna have to go through the inner critic voice like that again. All I have to do is masturbate. Thank you, Jocelyn. What an awesome way. Okay. Exercise during the luteal phase. So the luteal phase has two main parts, because remember the dip, right? So part number 1 and part number 2, before the dip, after the dip, before Christ, after Christ moment. So the before Christ, before the dip happens, we're more closer to ovulation. So it's a good period to do those strength trainings, to do those HIIT classes, to do all the jazz. At the end, when the dip happens, and again, if you have a body temperature counter, so if you have an Aura ring, or if you literally check your temperature every single day between your tongue or underneath your armpits, you'll be able to see the changes of your body temperature. The tongue is more accurate, by the way, than your armpit. Okay, old myth. Okay, so if you check your body temperature, you're gonna end up literally seeing it's actually the opposite of body temperature. So it goes up, right? And you'll be able to see that jump. For us, it feels like a dip because our body temperature goes higher because it needs more support. Okay, so as soon as that happens, this is the time period where I tend to do more Kegels, where I'll listen to my gut and what kind of workouts I want to do, and I'll also use like burning metabolism things right beforehand and all that jazz. Food, fall. What do you guys remember? Root vegetables, right? Vitamin D. So normally during fall, the sun's starting to dwindle. The sun is starting to dwindle. So while the sun is dwindling, it's a good time period to take vitamin D as well, right? And also vitamin B is really important, things that will help us with our folic acid and start to get us back up ready to go. So cauliflower, parsnips, radish, squashes, sweet potatoes, these are all things that people would eat normally if we had a garden, okay? Lifestyle, starting to go inwards, starting to wear pajamas. We talked about that inner critic. Focus, detail orientated. So a canning and preserving time period. So this is the time period to finish your to-do list, to complete things. If you have a business, or if you work in general, which we all do, right? You can plan out your business calendar for the month instead of daily. What am I going to do today? What are my 3 priorities for the day? Instead, you can plan out your business for the entire month with what I've been talking about. And then, so during the luteal phase, you would finish off tasks and complete things. During the follicular phase, you would plan out the projects for the rest of the month, right? During the ovulation phase, you would do the most important tasks, get it done. You would launch the things that you were starting to work on during the follicular phase. You would have a process in your business every single month to reevaluate your goals, to plan out new things, to launch new things, to put things out there in networking. You would complete your task and you would do it all over again. So notice how Cycle is very supportive, especially for women, to focus the energy, especially your energy that's already there, with the moon cycles / menstrual cycle phases. Okay. Literally, this is what got me into having 10K months a few months after I learned this and started really applying this. All right, self-care. So during the luteal phase, sensory sensitivity again, so aromatherapies, there's something about luteal phase and taking out my weaving kit or knitting or crocheting, doing my macrame. I gotta do something with these hands. Everything I just love feeling all the things. And so I'm like, ooh, different textures and making new things really remember the completion mode of the luteal phase. It really gets me going in there. And like, I want to finish this whole, I don't know, hat or scarf or whatever I'm making at the time period. And I want to finish it. So that feels really nice. And relaxing baths, we're going to talk about some absolutely amazing womb baths the next week that's coming up. So leaving that there, but know that it's coming. All right, so I'm going to talk a little bit more about business here. So it's just to break it down, very easy for you. So this shows the menstrual cycle phase, but again, you now know it all connects, so you can do it with the moon phases too. So follicular phase, creating and brainstorming. Ovulation, putting yourself out there, launching, public speaking, networking. Luteal phase, doing those admin accounts, working on those invoices, those taxes, completing things, all that jazz. And menstruation, what did you do for the month? How did it go? Did you finish everything you wanted? Introspect on how you did, and then do research on what's really going to move the needle the most the next month. Ask the divine, ask the cosmic womb, ask a goddess what you should do during the menstruation period, and then plan out your whole entire month and do it all over again. So compared to expecting yourself to do 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. and doing everything the man way, we just created a whole new business for you right here. If you just stick to a monthly thing, you have a whole new business and nothing will be missed. Nothing will be missed. You'll handle every single thing that you need to do for that month in a row while handling your energy. Any questions? All right. So, journal prompt time. Again, at some point, all of us had our periods. Yes. Not one person here didn't ever bleed in their entire life. We're good. Everybody had a womb at some point. So I'd like for you to write down what you've learned. I would love to hear like what you learned, what was shocking to you. And then I also would like you to write down your period is / was, or if you have your womb dialogue, I think I asked this question at some point, so you can actually relook at your notes and just notice like, my periods used to be very crampy and they had acne. I mean, were you by any chance living in your circadian or infradian rhythm? Were you connecting to your period? Were you just were you just getting on birth control pills and letting that manage it? All it does is pause it, and it's kind of like a dam, but it's a really bad dam, so it actually will break at some point and cause even more problems. Endometriosis, PCOS. Almost 70% of women that have PCOS have had birth control pills for 5+ years. This is a little fun fact. Yeah, fun little fact. So I'll put on a little bit of music so the girls can think about like, what have you learned so far? Writing that down and what your period was like or is. What did you think of your period? Was it your friend? Did you see it as your enemy? Did you hate it when it came around? Did you shove the tampon on and kept going? Did you honor it?
Dancing with the infinite, it's all a part of me. Whoa.
During our womb dialogue practice, we talked about what getting our first period was like. You can look back at those
Tapping
notes
into the light from the
and
center
start
of
to
the
notice,
universe.
what if you knew
Clarify
all
my
this
being as
when
I
you
ground
first got
into
your
the
period?
earth.
What would that have
Connectedness
been
of
like?
everything. We live just like the plants. Root down, rise up. I know it's really all a dance. Take my stance as I become aware of the infinite flowing through my veins. I took the chance to forget, to be reincarnated on this planet in this time, only to remember and to teach that we're divine. I watch the sun go down, the end of another day. My soul begins to howl, clearing the fear out the way. This vision of awakening, more vivid than before. The more defined in who I am as definitions out the door. More defined in who I am as definitions out the door. I can see it in the air. It's always been this way. Dancing with the infinite, it's all a part of me. I can see it in the air. It's always been this way. Dancing with the infinite, it's all a part of me.
All right, how are we doing? Y'all ready to get back to it? Hi, my mommy. All right. Song is done, which means we are done, and we shall move on. I'll press hold again. All right, so kind of looking, what did you girls write? Out of curiosity. What was your periods like?
I wrote that mine were light and kind of no big deal, but no support. It was a hassle. I was in swim team, so it was just like annoyance. And my mom is the one that kind of helped me. My sister on like how to put the tampon in and all of that. My mom didn't. It was my sister.
Thank you.
Yeah, I did not like my periods. I still don't. Like, I feel crampy today. So they're always like crampy. They were very heavy until I went on birth control at 16 until 34. And then when I got off birth control after my last child, I was like, oh my God, what is this? It just felt like boom, it was gushing out of me. So that's why I had that procedure. But yeah, I never really liked it. It was always either like started bright red, always ended with brown. So right now, like if I do bleed or anything, it's usually like either a bright red, really little, and then a dark brown. I'm always usually crabby at that time. I kind of have no patience with people. I get a lot of acne, and so does my daughter.
All right, cool. Thank you.
Definitely did not honor it. That's for sure. It's more of a nuisance than anything, if you ask me. Not
What would
happy.
honoring it look like?
Maybe meaning more like accepting of it instead of like, oh, I got my period again. I can't go swimming. I can't do this, or I don't feel good, instead of just being like, okay, I know it's coming and this is how I feel. And maybe just, yeah, like nurturing myself a little instead of kind of, I guess you could say I was probably beating myself up over it or not saying very nice things to myself. And I'm thinking that's what my daughter is doing to herself too. So.
Well, this information, hopefully you can pass it down to her.
I'm gonna, yeah, definitely.
Cool.
Thank
Perfect.
you.
I've had a really interesting journey with mine because when I was younger, like through my teens and in my early 20s or through my 20s and even my early 30s, I remember I used to not brag, but I used to remember having conversations with other people about how I didn't have any PMS, I didn't have any cramping, I didn't understand this heavy periods that people had, like mine were what I would just consider to be normal. It never stopped me from doing anything. It was easy peasy. I would be always very sexual during my period. Like, just it never stopped me from doing a single thing until I started trying to get pregnant. And then I wasn't getting pregnant. And then we went to find out what was going on. And then that's when I was diagnosed with endometriosis and was like, well, that's weird. Like, I don't have a lot of symptoms or anything like that. And the fertility problem was actually my then husband's problem. The endometriosis was very, very new, and it wasn't supposed to hinder anything. And for the next like maybe 5 years, it went on as being absolutely normal, like what I considered, normal. And then I moved to England and had, complete homesickness, hated my job, all of this like ridiculous stress. And then that's when it's like all the major symptoms of endometriosis just like caught up with me, boom, in an instant. And it just went from, oh, I don't have PMS, I don't have, this, that, or the other, I just go about my business, to I can't function when I'm on my period. Like, the cramping would be me on the floor. I'd have to call into work and wouldn't be able to make it in. I would bleed through a super tampon and a maxi pad in 15 minutes. I couldn't physically teach. Like, how do you stand in front of a group of teenagers and teach for 50 minutes when you've got to change your tampon and maxi pad 3 times in that period of time? Like, just went absolutely nutso. And I thought, okay, I'll get rid of the stress. I quit teaching. I started my own business, got married to the love of my life, had all these wonderful things that really kind of calmed down all the stress, but the symptoms never went away. So now I'm on the pill to take away the period, so that all the pain and everything is gone so I can function. It's crazy. One extreme to the other.
Yeah. Thanks, Lisa. Yeah, and it's every person's different in the reaction of their bodies, for sure. And thank you for sharing your portion of it. And hopefully we can still make peace with it, right? Even if you're taking pills to turn it off for now, at least we can hopefully make peace with it. I mean, what if that changes everything, right? Who knows? So just noticing how much our periods can affect our lives was a beautiful example with Lisa's story. And also realizing, is there another way? Can there be another way? Maybe another way to look at it, even if you don't have your period anymore, and maybe even supporting your daughter or your niece or your friend within that. All right, so one of the interesting theories out there on how patriarchs started, or how they started to take hold from the get-go. What is weird? What is happening to these slides? What's this green thing going on here? So is menstrual taboos. So supposedly, when the menstrual taboos started to change, taboos, I just want to be clear. Do I have it here? Is it another slide? Hold on. I didn't hear. I did. So taboos meant something very different than like not talkative. It meant sacred. Taboo meant sacred. So like menstrual taboos was one of the first things that men started to attack, kind of, or destroy, kill, if I may, because of the words that it happens in 8 weeks. They didn't like it. It was too much power to begin with. There's a storm happening. It is summer and it is Florida. So if you start hearing tons of rain, I apologize. I can't do anything except maybe ask you girls to read some more slides for the rest of it until we get through it, because the rain's probably gonna hit very quickly. So menstrual taboos was it was something sacred for women. We used to gather in red tents in honor of each other and in honor of going inwards. And then all of a sudden, men started saying, no, you have to go. You need to get away from us. You guys are evil during your menstrual cycles, like a devil takes over. All these weird terms started to come in, and then it completely changed the meaning of what menstrual cycle was. So did we do that to ourselves? I mean, once we honor that, right? Anybody want to read this?
I will. Make peace with your period. For this theory to hold, early